Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and Restless official. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Ashley Abbott might be the next kidnapping victim, according to spoilers for The Young and the Restless. Will Ashley end up as the hostage of Martin Laurent, also known as Alain Laurent, in Paris? Alain contacted Tracy Abbott with some odd developments during the March 19th episode of YNR. The fact that Alain was choosing to board the final commercial flight to Paris rather than wait on the Jabot plane astounded Tracy. That implied that Alain was going to Paris by himself, of course. Alain said on the phone that he wanted Tracy to meet him there in a few days because he had a surprise for her. Tracy was obviously perplexed by the change in plans, and the upcoming episodes will only make things more bizarre. All of this is leading Tracy to believe that Alain might not actually be Alain. What will Martin do now that he has clearly survived and is pretending to be his twin brother? Ashley is currently in Paris, so if Martin is indeed headed there, that could cause problems for her. Martin had previously tricked Ashley into believing he is Alain, and he could easily do it again, at least long enough to trick her. Ashley might be abducted if Martin decides he needs a hostage because he feels like the walls are closing in. Tracy suggested that since they were going to Paris to look at wedding venues, they should personally inform Ashley of their engagement. By exaggerating his major surprise, Alain might meet Ashley alone and give her a false sense of security. If Alain gives Ashley pills and then hides her somewhere, that could be the actual stunner. Martin might kidnap Ashley and attempt to use her in some way as leverage. However, considering Martin is insane and capable of anything, this might be a part of another twisted game. Tracy might foretell the danger that lies ahead if she understands Alain's trick. A serious situation could arise because Ashley is now in Paris and Martin might be arriving there shortly. According to teasers for The Young and the Restless, Eileen Davidson has taped scenes that haven't yet aired. Watch to see how Ashley might be drawn into the drama. After calling Nick and Victoria to his office, Victor informed his kids about the fire at the prison where Jordan was housed. Victoria pondered if Jordan was dead or had managed to get away. Victoria inquired about Nikki and Claire's reactions to the news. Nick pondered whether Jordan would take the chance of going back to Genoa City. Victor explained that until they received proof of Jordan's status, they should all be on guard because Jordan was crazy and had a grudge against Nikki and the family. Victoria was reassured by Victor that a security team had already been dispatched to the hospital. Victoria requested that Claire not be informed of the heightened protection for the safety of her daughter. Victoria was reassured by Victor that he would handle it. Victor explained to his kids that he had chosen not to tell his wife that Nikki had been with him when he got the call. Nick said that they would not be able to conceal the truth for very long, but Victoria acknowledged the soundness of her father's choice. Victor then told Victoria and Nick that Audra had been dismissed by Nikki. The fact that their mother would be managing Newman Media by herself alarmed Nikki's kids. Victor later asked Nick if he and Adam were getting along after Victoria had left. Although Nick told his father that Adam had been acting appropriately, Nick was a little dubious, pointing out that a roadblock or perceived grievance may ruin the goodwill. Nick did go on to say that he genuinely wanted Adam to be successful. Even if he is seeing Sally Spectra again? Victor questioned his kid. Though he wished the best for her and Adam, Nick told Victor that he also had hoped for a future with Sally. Nick argued that the best way to keep Adam focused and on his best behavior was for the two of them to stay out of it, and Victor acknowledged that he had never truly liked or trusted Sally. Victor voiced his worries regarding Nick's lack of personal time. Victor was informed by Nick that he was content with the current state of affairs. Victor expressed his happiness with their collaboration to Nick. Audra told Nikki that she had packed everything she owned when she arrived at her office. Audra pondered maybe Nikki had decided not to fire her after all. Nikki reaffirmed that Audra could only remain if she accepted the role of managing the London office of Newman. Nikki informed Audra that her choice would remain in place when she declined once again. Nikki acknowledged that she felt guilty about the choice, but she had no choice but to be self-centered due to the situation. Audra reaffirmed that she posed no threat and would keep Nikki's struggle a secret from everyone. Additionally, Audra reminded Nikki that she had vowed to maintain her distance and refrain from keeping an eye on her. Audra, Nikki murmured, stopping her. "We've had this conversation." Audra answered, "I'm hoping you can find someone to replace me as soon as possible because managing Newman Media by yourself? My presence will never be as much of a hardship or a test of your sobriety as the tension will be." After wishing Audra well, Nikki offered to write a recommendation letter once again before holding out her hand. After shaking Nikki's hand and thanking her for her advice, Audra referred to Nikki as a legend in this business. As Audra put it, Nikki would succeed with this latest challenge. After leaving Nikki's office, Audra texted Tucker to inquire whether he had decided. When Jack and Diane got to Jabot headquarters, they discovered Kyle already working diligently. Jack expressed his immense pride in Kyle to his son. Kyle told his mother that he intended to go above and beyond by working hard to make up for previous misbehavior. The past was the past, Jack reassured his kid. Jack reminded Kyle that Jabot had been rescued from Tucker McCall with his assistance. Kyle had nothing to prove to them, Diane said, concurring with Jack. With a "maybe I have something to prove to myself," Kyle answered. Diane had been working on the idea of restructuring the internship program at Jabot, which Kyle presented to his parents. After that, Kyle went to a meeting. Jack had faith that Kyle's new role would succeed and was hopeful that the three of them would steer the business toward a bright new future. But Diane didn't think their son agreed with Jack's choice. "What are you talking about?" Diane was asked by Jack. Diane informed Jack that while Kyle was saying all the right things, his father had not named him co-CEO, which upset him. Diane shrugged away Jack's suggestion that she was being overly protective. "He had no intention of assisting me with the internship project. I can do this job, and I can do it better," he said subtly. Diane gave Jack an explanation. According to Jack, Diane would constantly regret not giving the job to Kyle because of her maternal impulses. Diane and Kyle were exactly where they were meant to be, Jack informed her. It was Nikki who called Jack. In order for Jack to answer the phone, Diane excused herself. After telling Jack that she was overworked, Nikki asked him whether he had found someone to take Audra's place. These things could take time, Jack told Nikki. Following her talk with Audra, Nikki confided in Jack that she had experienced a negative time. Jack told Nikki that she shouldn't think twice about firing Audra because it was a necessary part of her healing process and she could manage Newman Media by herself until a new COO was found. Nikki questioned whether she was hurting herself, but Jack reassured her, saying, "Avoid that self-doubt trap. Concentrate on your work, 1 hour at a time, one task at a time." Jack was correct, Nikki agreed. Nikki's door was knocked on. Nikki ended her chat with Jack when Victoria entered. Victoria informed her mother that she knew Audra had been fired. Victoria inquired as to whether Nikki believed that had been a wise choice. "Questioning my judgment is not helpful, Victoria." Nikki shot back, brusquely. Victoria began to apologize, but Nikki interrupted and expressed regret for yelling at her. Victoria questioned whether Nikki's sobriety would be at jeopardy due to a double workload. "I wish everyone would stop hovering around me," Nikki declared. Victoria asserted that she had good reason to worry about her mother. Nikki was adamant that she could prevail again. Victoria offered to serve as an interim COO after telling Nikki that she only wanted to assist. Victoria, according to Nikki, had been coping with unusual situations of her own and had resigned from her previous role to assist Claire. When Nikki inquired about Claire, she shifted the conversation. Victoria updated her mother, telling her that Claire was now more outspoken and hopeful. Victoria offered to help again, but Nikki turned her down and threw her out of the office, saying there was a conference call coming up. After exchanging smiles and embracing, Victoria walked away. Nikki's smile was short-lived. At Society, Tucker went over to Nate and inquired as to whether he and Audra were dating. Tucker was informed by Nate that it was none of his concern. Nate responded, "Audra's done with you, Tucker," as Tucker attempted to explain that he and Audra were close. "Are you the last to find out?" After receiving Audra's text, Tucker said Nate was unaware of how close he and Audra were. Tucker would always be alone himself, Nate retorted, and he would release Audra if he really loved her. "She is brilliant and talented, but she'll never achieve her true potential with your dead weight around her neck. Tucker was informed by Nate. Nate left to take a seat at a table. Tucker sat down after him. Tucker told Nate that he knew Audra had plotted some kind of retaliation and that he and Audra understood one another. Tucker inquired as to Nate's knowledge of that. "No clue," lied Nate. Tucker requested that Nate inform Audra that he had discovered her. Nate was urged by Tucker not to become involved with Audra. Tucker's selfishness and ego were described by Nate as astonishing. Tucker denied that his world did, in fact, center on himself, in the same way that Audra's and Nate's did. In protest, Nate remarked, "I'm nothing like you." "You are, of course." Tucker grinned and remarked, "You're just not good at it." Tucker claimed that Nate's need for approval was his vulnerability. He begged Devin's consent by telling Nate that he had met Nate the previous evening. Nate replied, "Devin and we're rebuilding our relationship, and we're in a good place, and you can't stand to see that because your son wants nothing to do with you." After ignoring Nate's statement, Tucker advised him to move to Glissade with Audra and Tucker if he ever became weary of being ignored at Chancellor Winters. Nate remarked, "There is no more Audra in you," and he shook his head. Audra came up to their table at that moment. Tucker fired a final shot. He informed Audra that Nate was thinking about joining their team. "No way in hell," explained Nate. Even when Nate protested, Audra followed Tucker out of society after he left. She asked Tucker if he had forgiven her after catching up with him. How should I play this?" Tucker pondered, cynically and out loud. He assured Audra that he was no longer upset with her and that she was still in at Glissade. Tucker responded, "No, I know I won't, because bringing you back in is the only way I'm gonna find out what the hell you're up to Audra's assurance that he wouldn't regret it.